What's up, Mets fans? Welcome to another Mets Postgame Show right here on both of our channels and on our X accounts. Not what we were expecting from a team that came home after a long West Coast trip facing the Oakland Athletics, and they lose a series against the A's. And this one stings a little bit more than probably even the first game. First game was basically a blowout. This one, up 5-0, you got to shut the door. And it is extremely frustrating. We're going to talk about all the problems in this game. And you know what? I'm not blaming the offense in this aspect because it's very hard to blame an offense. Yes, they had opportunities to score more runs, but when you score 6 runs, you should win the ball game. This, in my opinion, is solely on the overall pitching in this game. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
I'm not doing good. I'm frustrated. That was embarrassing. And we try to keep it as even keel as possible on these streams. But this game, like Ray is saying in the chat, it stings. It stings really badly. This is a deflating loss for the New York Mets. And honestly, I wasn't going to blame the offense until they decided not to score any more runs after that 4th inning, right? And so I'm not here to blame the offense or the pitching. I'm here to blame this team because on both sides of the ball, it was a little ridiculous. Obviously, Mark Vientos gets the job done with a multi-home run game, and he provided much of the offense for today. But outside of that, there's not many positives about this game. There really isn't. And I think that the guy that I have always been talking about, especially with you, especially with everybody in the chat, that allowed the Oakland Athletics to get back into the game after he had a 5-0 lead was Mr. Jose Quintana, the veteran, the lefty, the guy that's been pitching okay ever since that horrible stretch of starts that he had earlier this season. But goodness, I said it in the pregame show today, very early on. If you guys missed it, no worries. I understand it's a Thursday, and I went live at like 11:45 a.m. I'm crazy about this team. What can I say? But for those of you all who were there, you all know that I mentioned at the top of the stream, it's never easy, it seems like, with Jose Quintana. It's never easy. And today was one of those games. Unfortunate, the bullpen didn't look great either. 11 walks across the board for Mets pitching is unacceptable. Unacceptable. And we are here to hold this team accountable by talking about it all. This is unacceptable, Rob. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, you can pinpoint anything you want to pinpoint today. And can me, you, or anybody else say you're wrong or I'm wrong, or someone in the chat is saying whatever you blame today, you have a reason in why you're blaming it. Like, I'm not going to blame you if you. Now, I know I just said, can you blame Mendoza in this spot? Leaving in Quintana in a little bit longer than he should have. I mean, the bullpen clearly didn't do nothing anyway. So how much better would have I know Quintana gave up the grand slam, but the bullpen wasn't good either. So, I honestly, it just felt like the pitching just wasn't going to get it done today. And the frustrating thing, and I always hate this because I kill the offense so much all the time. And specifically in a lot of games where they put up zeros, they put up 6 runs today. I know they had opportunities, but the moment in the game that I think kind of made me thought like, uh-oh, this team's in trouble, was when Alvarez fouled off that ball and stepped in front of home plate, and the ball hit him, and he was called out. Yeah, 2 runners on, 1 out. You pinch in for Jeff McNeil. Now, we can question that, and we can talk about that if you want. But
I do want to talk about that. I do want to talk about that.
Honestly, look, Alvarez has got to be smarter in that situation. It wasn't like he was swinging so hard where he fell off balance. He was looking at the ball. Like, that is just a bonehead play. That is just a lack of awareness of where you are. Like, you have to be in more control over your body in that situation. I looked at the replay and I'm like, all right, maybe did he lose his balance? No. He just stepped like, oh, he thought it was a foul ball and that was it. Just stepped like, you got to be more aware of that situation, especially in a big spot like that. And, am I going to blame Mendoza for pinching in McNeil? I'm pinching Alvarez for McNeil. I'm not going to say no. I'm not going to kill him, but McNeil had the best at bats of the game with his long at bats. He had better at bats than most people in the game. He didn't get a lot of hits, but he had long at bats. So if McNeil would have came up, would he have got the job done? Obviously, we're never gonna know. So, Chris, what is your opinion on that? Because I know people on X and in the group chat, it was more of I can understand where people can get on Mendy in that aspect, but I understand what Mendoza was trying to do. If he came through, he would have looked like a genius, but he didn't come through. But it just looked bad because Alvarez didn't get the at bat that he could have had to either fail or succeed because of that bonehead play that he did at the plate.
First things first, 3 things here. 1, shout out to the chat. Love you guys being here. Thank you all so much. Make sure to hit that thumbs up. Regardless of wins or losses for the Mets, we love this team. We'll be talking about it. And the fact that you all are here means a lot to us, even though M-Easy's in the chat doing a little bit trolling. And rightfully so. You've got the upper hand, M-Easy's, particularly with the bullpen, how they looked in this game. But you know what? We appreciate it. Make sure to hit that thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already to Rob or myself's channel, make sure you subscribe. Second of all, live chat poll on my stream right now. I kept it very light after a game like today. I wanted to keep it light. I didn't want to cause too much controversy with this Mets team in the opinion. So predict how many home runs you think Vientos will finish within the regular season. That's what we got going on there. And then also, thirdly, let's take a look at the situation and what possibly could have been going through the mind of Carlos Mendoza when making this decision. On one hand, I don't like this decision. Like, let me just caveat this and get in front of it by saying I don't like that in-game decision. Now, let me play a little devil's advocate in the mind of Carlos Mendoza and what he might be thinking. Francisco Alvarez obviously had a very tough stretch before maybe the last week and a half, right? He's been putting together solid at-bats. The power is almost certainly gone off of Francisco Alvarez's bat, but he has been more or less been a singles hitter, right? We've seen him utilizing the opposite field, driving the ball to the right fielder, getting some base knocks. And it's not going to be gap-to-gap power that you see from Francisco Alvarez, but he's been getting the job done in terms of getting on base. He was hitting like 280 or something like that since the month of August before today or before this series started during that 10-game road trip. So that was probably his thinking. Okay, Alvarez, we got the matchup here. Alvarez has been swinging a hot bat. Maybe, he might come through for me and make me look like a genius, like you said, Rob. But on the other hand, I understand that Jeff McNeil's kind of in a little bit of a rut. I know he took the 0 for yesterday. He was, I believe, 0 for today as well. He had 2 tremendous at-bats, both 10-plus pitches, I believe. One was 10-pitch at-bat, and the other one was an 11-pitch at-bat. I just can't justify it in my head, knowing that Jeff McNeil in total for this second half has been one of your better hitters along with Francisco Lindor, right? Along with the Jose Iglesias. Jeff McNeil has proven to buy himself those at-bats and not get paid for. On the other hand as well, or I guess on the same point, Jeff McNeil has held his own versus lefties. So if the lefty-righty matchup, which you know that I hate, Rob, is your reasoning if you're Carlos Mendoza, Jeff McNeil is batting about 17 points higher, 231 versus right-handed pitching and 248 versus lefties this season. So that wouldn't make any sense at all. I think it was a bad decision, and not only because the result didn't work out. I understand and I can take myself and put myself in the mind of Carlos Mendoza, but when looking at it from a perspective of the feel of the game, with the types of at-bats that these guys are taking, the types of second halves that both of these guys have had, and coupled with the fact that Jeff McNeil also understands and knows and has fared well versus left-handed pitching, I defended Mendoza a lot on his decisions, whether they work out or not. And obviously the end result is going to sway a lot of people's decisions. But even so, even with Alvarez, right, getting out and the way that at-bat played, the shortened at-bat with him getting called for touching the ball while it was in play on the fluke kind of at-bat, I didn't like it at all. I didn't like it at all. Like I said, I understand both sides of it, but I didn't like it at all. And I have to be honest there.
Yeah, and I said it in the group chat. Like, I would have made that decision to remove McNeil, but again, if it is the lefty righty, which again I agree with you, I hate that type of lefty righty matchup. If that is the reason why, again, we're not watching a post game right now. We're listening to Mendoza's comments of why he did it. I'm hoping somebody would ask him that question. But if it is, if he would have said, listen, I think Alvarez was swinging a better bat than McNeil right now. I like the matchup, not lefty righty, just I like the matchup. Maybe I can understand his reasoning, but at the same time, I still go back to Alvarez. Like you gotta be aware in that situation. Like, we can blame the coaches all we want, but the players are on the field. When the manager chooses you and puts you on the field, you gotta perform. Right? It's just that simple. We had enough opportunities in a ball game. Yes, we scored 6 runs, but we had enough opportunities in the ball game to take the lead. And they could have done that. Right? We saw it in the last inning. Not coming, we actually got a runner on base in the ninth. Nothing came to fruition at all. And the rest of the game, right? We didn't score nothing until after the 4th inning, right? If it wasn't for Mark Vientos, we would have what? 2 RBIs? I mean, three other runs. That's it. Like Vientos was the only one that was putting really, really good at bats together and putting, having hard contact. I just feel like what we're doing here is trying, I'm not you, but in general, like I feel like people are like, I seen it on X. We seen it in our group chat, right? It was right away. Blaming Hefner, blaming Mendoza. Look, I don't like Hefner. I'm not sure why he was able to be a part of this organization for 3 regimes, right? But we keep on blaming the coaches for decisions that are made, which is understandable. You're gonna managers aren't gonna be perfect. We all know that. But the players, it seems like we're making it secondary to blame the players. Like there was opportunities in this ball game, and look, we can bitch about Hefner all we want. Those are professional ball players on the mound. They have to stop walking guys. Like we can make this a full whole round picture here. The fact of the matter is, the pitching lost us this game, and yes, the offense could have came through in bigger spots later in the ball game, absolutely, and they should have. But I'm sorry, 6 runs should be enough. You can't walk 11 batters in a ball game. I don't care if it's the A's. I don't care if it's the White Sox. It doesn't matter. You can't give up 11 walks and expect to walk out of that game in the W column. The Mets didn't deserve to win this game. Let's be perfectly honest. The A's deserved to win this game. The Mets did not deserve to win this game. Sorry to say, that might piss some people off, and that might say, oh, how can you give credit to a terrible 52-win team? Well, it was absolutely true because the Mets didn't deserve to win. With the after the 4th inning, multiple opportunities to get a couple of runs here or there, and they didn't capitalize. But you can't give up 11 walks. Look, if the Mets would have won this game and they would have pulled it out in the 9th inning, that was a miracle win. They didn't deserve to win that game. If we would have snuck out a win, it would have been a miracle. You would take that and run to the next series against Miami. And you know what this leads us to now, Chris? Losing 2 out of 3 at home against the A's and having an opportunity to gain at least a half a game with the Padres and the Diamondbacks that they're off, and the Braves are losing right now. You could have gained the full game on them, which sucks even more because, let's be honest, guys, this is already game 121. We're getting closer and closer to the end here. So we already lose in the standings there. We lost a half a game with the Padres and the Diamondbacks. We possibly could lose a full game with the Braves if they come back and win. Let's hope they don't. The only positive is that the Mets kind of gave themselves a little bit of a cushion with the teams behind them, which is helpful because, right? Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to bring a little bit of positivity because it's a shit show right now. This team did not deserve to win this series, and they got lucky to win one of those games. Right? It was nice to win yesterday, but you got to carry it over to today. This should have been no contest today, Chris. It's frustrating.
The problem is, and I've seen a lot of these takes, and shout out to Sko, by the way. Shout out to Sko for being here. Thank you for the super chat as well. Definitely appreciate you being in the chat and here with us, right, for this therapy session, because this is what it is, right? We're not going to try to sugarcoat this. We are here to hold this team accountable because, like I said, no excuses. These are missed opportunities. Missed opportunities this whole month of August so far. has been missed opportunities. Like you said, you're trying to chase down two hot teams, the hottest teams in baseball, the Padres and the Diamondbacks, right? And they have an off day. Like you said, you have a chance to gain a half game. It looks good. It feels good in the standings, right? And you don't do it. And a lot of people have been saying that, these teams, right, below 500, this is their World Series for this season. They see the Mets or any other good team on their schedule that's in the playoff hunt, in a playoff race, and they are coming for blood because they have nothing else to play for this season. And that's why you saw the A's throw out Mason Miller in the 8th inning for the 6-out save. I know he hasn't had as much work recently, but that's why they did it. They want these wins. And you see these fans for the Oakland Athletics in Citi Field holding up a sell sign, right? Sell the team to their owner, and they go and take 2 or 3 in Citi Field against the New York Mets. It's embarrassing. And honestly, I don't think we're doing enough justice to how disgusting this pitching effort was today. We are not. Everybody in the chat, I had to double check this statistic. The New York Mets have given up the second most walks across the board, across their pitchers in the entire MLB. They are number 2 in most walks. Do you want to guess the team that's number 1 right in front of them? Right? The only other team in the league that has more walks, given up more walks than the New York Mets. It's the Chicago White Sox, who are a historically bad team this season in the WL column. This is disgusting and it needs to change. And if you don't believe me, listen to Gary Cohen. Please listen to him because he even said it doesn't matter if you win these types of games. Obviously, you're not going to throw these wins, right? If the Mets were to win, you're not going to throw these wins out the window because they're important. But moving forward and trying to compete in this race for the wild card, you cannot give teams these extra bases and these free bases like the Mets have been doing. And I get it. I've been on Adam Ottavino. I've been on Jose Quintana, right? They've been horrible. But it really is a problem, more or less, with the entirety, the bullpen, everybody in the bullpen, the starting rotation, everybody in the starting rotation. Nobody is exempt from this criticism. Nobody on the pitching side. So I had to just say that because if you didn't know, right, we could talk about the coaching. And I really do think, Rob, regardless if the Mets get into the playoffs this season or not, and I'm fully expecting them to do so, like I'm just waiting for them to turn it around. And maybe I'm foolish, but I also think the Mets are playing with house money right now. Right? I think the Mets are playing with house money, and I think us as fans are playing with house money, watching competitive baseball trying to make a run at this wild card because early June, we didn't even know what kind of baseball we'd be watching. We didn't know if we have a team that was sold off at the deadline or not. So I'm thinking about it as a fan perspective, but from a player perspective, this loss, right? It almost should warrant another team meeting. I'm sorry to say, it almost should warrant another team meeting. And I know that, right, that's kind of a cliche type of thing. Like how many team meetings is going to, hold over well? Like what is that really going to do for the longevity of this season? They already did it once. Are we really expecting the same magic to happen again? I don't know. That's up to the players to figure out. But what we've been seeing in the month of August is completely unacceptable from a team that has a roster on paper to make some noise and has had the opportunity slipping away in between their fingers with a Braves team that has been equally as bad. So I'm sorry, I have to go on this rant. It's a therapy session. I'm sure a lot of Mets fans are thinking the same way, and I'm angry and I'm upset. I really am. But at the end of the day, I'm also taking it from a different lens as well. And I've been taking it from this lens for this whole entire season. Even before the Mets went on that magical run, they are playing with house money. But the players aren't thinking of it that way, and they shouldn't think of it as that. So
no, and you're right about the house money thing. But you know what? It is. You even said it, right? If this team don't make the playoffs, you would be disappointed, right?
100%.
That's where we are 100%. Right now.
100%.
We're at the point where, yes, it is house money. Nobody expected us to look. Most people they were going to have 75 wins this year. Pretty good chance that they're going to get over that mark. I mean, unless they really fall apart. But say if they win 84 games, right? That's basically a 500 record from here on out. If they win 83, 84 wins, a lot more than what a lot of people thought. But again, it's going to be disappointing because look, when Stearns and Cohen talked about a competitive team this year, 95% of the fan base laughed at them. Well, you can't say it's not been competitive because they're probably going to play out the rest of the season in a playoff, fighting for a playoff spot. And I know that's like, oh, that's not the goal that we're trying. No, the goal is trying to make the playoffs, right? For a season where a lot of people thought it was a transition year or some even a rebuild year, we're in a spot right now where we're only 2 games. Well, right now 2.5 out of a wild card. If the Braves lose, we'll still remain 2 games. But at the same time, it is frustrating, right? Look, we're gonna care if we're not gonna make the playoffs. A lot of people say, "Oh, look, this core choked again," and I'd probably be one of them. But it's how we're losing that is more frustrating, right? It's been a lot of the things that made us win games in June and July, right? It was, when the pitching wasn't doing well, the offense picked them up. When the offense wasn't doing nothing, the pitching picked them up. When the pitching wasn't doing well, the offense wasn't doing well. The bullpen was hanging them, keeping them in ball games. What's happening now is that you can pinpoint, look, the pitching didn't do their job today. That's why they lost. The other day, it was the offense. The pitching held it down for the most part to get the offense back into it. The offense did nothing. So they're losing the same way that they were winning in June and July when they were picking each other up. Now, the other part of it is they're not picking each other up when somebody's having a bad night. They're both having a bad night. And they're having that too much in August and since the All-Star break. So it's a problem. Like, honestly, guys, as bad as the Mets have played or since the All-Star break, we're lucky they're not buried. We're lucky we're 2 games out of a wild card spot, or possibly 2.5, maybe 3. Like, we're lucky because the Braves haven't really played well. Yes, the Padres and the Diamondbacks have played extremely well, but we're lucky. The Giants, even though they went on a little bit of a run, they were a little bit further back. The Cardinals fell apart, right? And everybody else behind the Cardinals is like probably not going to happen. So it's probably going to come down to the last 4 teams that are from the first wild card to where the Mets are right now. I think the Giants don't have enough to actually get into a wild card spot. I'm not worried about them right now. So what do the Mets have to do? You got the Marlins, you got the Orioles, and then you head to that West Coast trip with the Padres and the Diamondbacks. This is a stretch of what, 10, 11 games where they better have 2 or 3 games over 500 stretch. They if 11 games, they at least go 7-4. Like, that's going to be tough. Now, look, if we play well against the Marlins, and I don't want to hear people saying, "Oh, we need to sweep the Marlins." Obviously, we all want to sweep. We have to focus on taking series, guys. Right? We can't get away from the bigger picture. The bigger picture is winning series. If you win series. And I did the math, I believe, about a week ago. If the Mets win series, they're on the verge of 90 wins. All right? Win series. Win series is going to get you mid-80s at the very least. Obviously, if there's 4-game series, you can split. But you win series, and in these 11 games, your goal is to win series. We all want the sweep, but you got to win series. Right? It sucks that we lost the series against the A's. Embarrassing. Can't happen. But come out, as Chris always says, win the first game. Now you got 2 opportunities to win the series. The Mets put themselves in a situation, losing the first game, that they had to win the next 2 games. You got to win the first game. And it starts tomorrow. No more excuses for this team. They got to go out there with, 40 games left and get the job done. There's no more excuses. We talk about how loose this team was playing for 2.5 months, from June all the way until early, for 2 months. They were playing loose, right? No pressure. That was what the media was all about, Chris, right? No pressure. Nobody expects them to win, so there was no pressure on them. Now people expect them to win. Now teams are coming in looking forward to playing the Mets and not saying, "Oh, we're going to beat this team, LOL Mets." They're looking forward because now the Mets are the talk of the national media, and people are talking about them now, Chris.
What does that say about the Mets, though, Rob? What does that say about the Mets, though?
Like, we always been talking about the core.
Exactly. Like expectations change, just like Junior said in the
Correct.
chat, and now the Mets are all of a sudden shying away from that. Like that is a huge problem, and that's been consistent, right? That's the only thing that's been consistent about the New York Mets in 2024, it seems, is when the pressure gets larger and the expectations grow, they fold, right? And we always talk about what was our key to this season, Rob, before the season even started, when we looked back at the season they had in 2023, when times get tough, we know you're going to go into a slump. Don't extend that slump. And that's what the Mets are doing right now. And they've done so in other spurts of this season. And I just simply can't wrap my head around it. So it's infuriating. It's absolutely infuriating, but you're right, 100%. The name of the game, especially in today's MLB, right? You just saw the White Sox beat the Yankees. You just saw the Mets lose a series to the Athletics. You have to go out there and win multiple series in a row. And that's what the Mets were doing, right? They weren't sweeping teams left and right during that hot stretch, right? They had a couple sweeps here and there, but they weren't sweeping teams left and right. They weren't that dominant, but they stacked series wins together. And that's what the Mets need to do for the next month and a half of baseball. I'm sick and tired of watching the Mets get to a position, right? In the last, decade, it's been few and far between within the decade, but like when they get to that spot where they're in contention past the deadline, they fold. Let's not fold this year. And I understand, and John is right. Braves, I don't know if they're going to begin to pull away. They're obviously losing 4-0 today, but they're getting help back. Michael Harris has came back, grand slam in his first at bat. It's and they just took 3 out of 4 in San Francisco, and San Francisco was a raging hot team as well. So it's getting to that point where the Braves are getting reinforcements, and the Mets seem to be on a little bit of a downward spiral. It's concerning to me, and I am concerned, and I really want to see how they bounce back. I really do. This is going to be a huge, huge test for this core. And I don't even want to say this core anymore because I dropped the video on my channel today. If you missed it, please go check it out. It dropped this morning. Francisco Lindor has been carrying this team above anybody else during this second half. In the month of August, coming into today, he was hitting 340. In the entirety of the second half, he was hitting just under 300 at 299. He has been, beside Jeff McNeil and Jose Iglesias, also helping him out a little bit, and maybe Tyrone Taylor in his limited at-bats and starts in between. Francisco Lindor has been the consistency in this lineup through and through. And that is something that we all need to give him credit for. And these other guys in this core, right? Your Brandon Nimmo, when he comes back from the stomach bug, right? Your Pete Alonso's, like you said in the stream, he went 4 for 4 yesterday, but where is he at today? That's what needs to change, and they need to help out Francisco Lindor. I'm sorry. It needs to be said.
Absolutely, right? We talked about, we know these guys weren't going to stay scorching hot, right? But what they couldn't do is get ice cold. Right? You got to stay in that lukewarm area. I talked about it on the pregame. That's where Lindor is. Lindor is scorching hot, and now he's in that lukewarm where he's still productive. He was the only one that hit in Seattle, right? Nobody else did, right? And Lindor.
Jeff McNeil had a couple hits in Seattle. I'll give credit.
Absolutely. Yeah, like you were saying, Jeff McNeil as well. But and then this is the issue, right? And look, people always hated me for going after Brandon Nimmo, but when Brandon Nimmo is hot, he is one of the better hitters in baseball. But when he's not doing well, there is no in-between with Brandon Nimmo. There is very hot or ice cold. That's a problem for a guy you gave a big contract to, one of the biggest contracts in center field in baseball. You can't have just the hot or the ice cold. You got to have an in-between, because you can't go for ice cold for a full month. And then, like I said, this team needs 2 of their top 4 guys in the lineup performing well offensively. You can't have one guy doing something and the other 3 not doing anything. It's not going to work. You can't rely on the bottom of the order, who carried your team for April and May to keep you afloat until the guys got red hot. But yeah, I'm going to go back to Pete Alonso, because I said it, right? He had that 2 home run game against Colorado. Everybody's like, oh, here comes Pete Alonso. Better swings. What does he do in Seattle? 8 strikeouts, 1 for 16, was terrible, right? How many opportunities did he have in this series, right? Yesterday, had a good night, right? Really good night. So I'm all right. 4 for 5, really good night. And then he goes and does nothing the next day. He had an opportunity in the ninth. He pops up. Like, look, I understand it was against Mason Miller, but this has been all season. You can't continue to, look at this core. And I'm going to go back to the core because I'll even go before Francisco Lindor in 2019 when the Mets won 18 out of 19 and they got back into the wild card race, right? As soon as the pressure got going, I looked at the numbers. Nimmo, bad. McNeil, bad. Alonso, bad. This was before, pre-Francisco Lindor. Okay? So this is a trend with those three guys. And if you want to put Lindor in part of that core, he's the only one who has been consistent. Yeah, you can kill him. I love him to start better earlier on in the season. But when is the pressure really on for a player on any team? It's when you got the final 60, 70 games of the season and you're on this stretch run and you're trying for a playoff run, right? As the Mets have shown you, you can recover from a bad April and May. You can't recover from a bad August. You're going to find yourselves 5-6 games out of a wild card, and then we're going to talking about the offseason in September. So I don't want to hear nobody talk about, oh, look at these stats, because the biggest patter on this damn team in his entire career is Mr. Pete Alonso, everybody's darling of this organization. And for everybody who keeps on saying he's not the face of the franchise, he always was, right? Everybody's like, oh, he's going to hit 500 home runs. Great. Did we win? Because that's what I care about. I don't care about individual stats. If it doesn't help your team overall, why do I care? Right? I worry about his individual stats if he makes the Hall of Fame or when you retire his number. Because I'm sick and tired of now it ain't so bad. Met fans, I mean, you were basically kissing his ass for years when this guy has done absolutely nothing in the clutch. And then people bring me stats in August and September when the Mets are 15 games out of a playoff spot. I'm sick and tired of talking about that guy. The guy isn't clutch. The guy wants $200 million, and this guy wants to get out of New York. I'm telling you this right now. I've said it in the beginning of the season, and I've said it throughout the entire season. This guy is going to find the quickest deal possible out of New York. This guy does not want to be here, right? He talked about, well, I'm an all-star. I'm going to hit 40 home runs. Where did you hear team? Yeah, I didn't. You know what I hear? I even hear McNeil talk about team. I even hear Nimmo talk about team. Lindor, Vientos, Martinez. But not Pete Alonso. I'm sick and tired of giving this guy excuses over and over again from a ton of Mets fans. A lot of you have come around. But it's amazing when everybody was hot, when Martinez was hot and Vientos and Nimmo and Lindor, and then all of a sudden SNY started putting Pete Alonso runners in scoring position, clutch numbers, how bad they were. And all of a sudden everybody starts talking about it. And everybody starts to turn on Pete Alonso. Well, it's about time. Because he is the guy that is supposed to be hitting 40 home runs for this team. How are you going to say this team is going to go anywhere if this guy doesn't have that offensive production that he pads his stats on when it matters the most? Because if he doesn't do it when it matters the most, then the numbers mean absolutely nothing. That is my biggest problem.
I mean, like I said, I mean, we're going to have discussions all off season long surrounding the Pete Alonso situation. I mean, I kind of just spitballed the other day with Darren from the Fat Boy Fadeaway Sports podcast in my post game after Athletics versus Mets game 1, right? We were kind of going into the Pete Alonso discussion. He actually asked me as an A's fan, he said, who's the guy when the Mets aren't doing well is getting the brunt of the heat? He said, is it Brandon Nimmo? I said, whoa, I mean, no, absolutely not. Brandon Nimmo's a fan favorite. He said, is it Pete Alonso? And I was like, not even Pete Alonso. I said, it's Francisco Lindor. Absolutely is the guy. When things aren't going well, he is getting the brunt of the heat. And Rob, I mean, I agree with you 100%. I don't know what the cards hold for Pete Alonso. I kind of spitballed, like, if the Mets really do believe he can turn it around and if they really want him back, the best that David Stearns should do at this rate, right? If this continues for the next month and a half, is the qualifying offer. I mean, you have the qualifying offer. You give him the qualifying offer. And if not, if he chooses to walk away, you get a compensation pick. There's no harm in giving the qualifying offer if you want him on this team. But yeah, we'll certainly have a lot of discussions about it. I did a whole live stream on my channel weeks ago, right, with Pete Alonso and assessing the clutch numbers behind Pete Alonso. If you all somehow missed it, if you're new to the channel, go to the live streams on my channel, go down until you hit something saying Pete Alonso's numbers or whatever, taking a look at Pete Alonso in depth, etc. I went through his clutch numbers for this season through and through. I compared them to Brandon Nimmo's clutch numbers, and I compared them to the numbers of Francisco Lindor and Brandon Nimmo while this team was close in ball games and not, like you just said, the stat padding statistics. Now, a game like yesterday, I understand he went 4 for 4. He had hits when the game was still relatively close, but like we need to see a lot more from Pete Alonso, especially for what he's going to want. Right. And we only know what the reports are that they've made public in terms of what he's going to want. Right. We heard that maybe or maybe not. I still don't know if it's confirmed if the Mets ever gave him that 7-year contract extension offer and he turned it down for like 150, 160, whatever it was. But at this rate, his value is taking a complete shot. And I honestly think that he might follow the path of a couple of other major brand name players this past offseason that Scott Boras had under his wing and getting them short-term prove-it-year deals. Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery just being two of those names. I know they're pitchers, but same sort of, I guess, process here. But yeah, no, it's absolutely ridiculous at this point. Like I said, we could talk about Pete Alonso. We could talk about Brandon Nimmo. We could talk about this whole entire pitching staff. Luis Severino hasn't been the best, right? Like this pitching staff has been okay, more or less, right? If we were to put this on any group of guys for this Mets team, it would more than likely be the offense, while that didn't resemble to be the case today. But I'm kind of sick and tired of saying, oh, it's the offense today. Oh, it's the pitching today. How about it being the whole damn team? And that's something that Hector always says as well. Let's not just pin it on XYZ player on the Mets. Let's pin it on the whole team. And at this point, Carlos Mendoza told us in the pregame before starting this home trip, right? This homestand against the Athletics. He said, we're not going out there. I'm not making excuses for our poor play. I have no rhyme or reason to why the Seattle Mariners beat us in every facet of the game. This is coming directly from the mouth of Carlos Mendoza. So if he's not giving this team any excuses, why would Rob and I come up on here and give this team excuses? This is not a time to give anybody excuses. They messed up. They let a lot of opportunities slip up to solidify themselves, at least at the very minimum, in that third wildcard spot over the Braves. And now they have some catching up to do while they are still in it. Two things can be true at one time, because I'm pissed off they didn't take advantage of the opportunity presented to them. But I'm also holding out faith. I know it's crazy how I'm still holding out faith for this team to actually do something and turn it around, only being 2 games, depending on what the score holds up to be between the Braves and the Giants today in the wild card standing. So, wow, Rob, I mean, talk about a therapy session and a half. This is awesome. I mean, this is not awesome because we're talking about a Mets loss, but it's good to get this off of our chest. It's good to get this off of our chest, and I hope you all are enjoying your time here in the live chat as well, doing the same, because I know a lot of people, just like you and I, Rob, are frustrated right now, and rightfully so.
Yeah, before we started the live, I clocked you into the stream, and we both were shaking our heads. We didn't even say a word. Like that's the feeling we have. Like, listen, this team shocked the world and Mets fans when they were 11 games under 500, and they figured out a way when nobody believed in them to get back to relevancy, get back to 500, get in a wild card spot, get within a few games of a wild card, and get in a wild card spot almost, and very, very shortly, the number 1 wild card spot, right? Can they do it within the next 40 games, right? Obviously, the future is going to tell us this, right? Hopefully they do. And, we got another 5 days in Flushing, little video, in the offseason that popped up, and it was a great season, and this team makes the playoffs. Again, listen, for anybody who says, I don't want this team to make the playoffs, and there's been enough of you guys that says, I don't want this team to make the playoffs because they're going to lose in the playoffs anyway. If that's the mentality you have, then where were you in 2015 when this team shouldn't have made the playoffs either? When they were irrelevant, basically, where they were not a very good team, and they go on a run. We see it every year. It's possible. Look, everybody's like, oh, why would Juan Soto, why would any big free agent name come to this team? They're not a really good team. They're not going to make the playoffs. Well, what if they make the playoffs? Isn't that something for other free agents to look at? Hey, look, this was a team that a lot of people didn't believe in. Transition year, quote unquote. This is why you have seasons like this where nobody really believed in you. You make the playoffs, right? It might give a second look to a free agent. And I don't believe that in any case, but I know a lot of Met fans were saying, why would any free agent come here, even though you've seen big name free agents come here when you give them the money, because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take the money. But for all the Met fans that just believe, oh, why would they come here? It's the Mets. They don't make the playoffs. Well, if you make the playoffs this year, let's say if you flare out in the wild card round, you get 3 playoff games that nobody was expecting they were going to get, probably except for me and Chris and maybe even Hector, right? So give this team a chance, right? Don't give up on them yet, because they proved us all wrong 2 months ago, right? And I think they deserve a little bit of credit for coming back, but also give them a little bit of that hope because of what they did that nobody expected them to do. And this was the same core that we're killing right now, actually. So let's see in the next 40 games, give them a little bit of time to see if they can do it. Listen, we'll criticize them if they do not do it. And we'll have the same conversations we had over the last couple of seasons and earlier this season about the core. But give them a little bit of a chance, right? They were going to go through a low spell. It's happening now. It's not a great time to do it, but it's happening now. Maybe they have 40 games in them where they go 25-15 or something like that. And, 25-15 gives you 87, gives you 87 wins, right? I think that will get you in a playoff spot. So we'll see what happens. The most important thing, don't give up on this team this yet. You can be frustrated. You can be disappointed, but don't give up on them yet. And this is from somebody who's usually negative with the team and certain players. So there's a little positivity for everybody that thinks I'm always negative.
Listen, M-Easy, I see you in the chat. I'm standing on 10 toes. Nobody's ducking smoke. You've ducked smoke this whole entire season, especially after I told you one lefty was going down for Reed Garrett, and then you hid when you were clamoring that the Mets needed 2 lefties, and it didn't happen. So we can go both ways in that argument, buddy. No one's ducking smoke. I'm up here on camera talking Mets baseball. You're in the chat. I'm addressing it right now. And shout out to my guy, Fat Boy Fadeaway Sports. I'm going on their podcast tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yes, he is an Oakland A's fan. You deserve all the trolling in the world right now in this live chat, because I'm embarrassed of the New York Mets right now. Darren, I appreciate you being here. Thank you for providing some comedic relief in the chat. I definitely needed that. Hard to believe Mets fans don't kill Nimmo more, he's saying. So, yeah, that's your perspective. I'll be going on the Variety Sports Network 7th inning stretch, 10 p.m. Like I said, make sure you go subscribe to them and the Fat Boy Fadeaway Sports podcast. I definitely appreciate it. Yeah, Rob, I mean, I agree with you in a totality, right? We're going on rants here. At the end of the day, like I said, I'm still holding out hope that they turn it around, and that's exactly what we need, right? And we want to see this team in the playoffs. And like you have been saying this whole entire season, if they get into the playoffs, anything can happen. But we need better performances. And until they start winning, right? Until they start winning, we're going to hold these guys accountable. The bullpen, MEZ, do you want to hear me say it? They stunk today. They were absolute garbage. If that makes you feel better at home because you had a rough day at work, I'm saying it right now, buddy. Here you go. The bullpen was garbage today. Does that mean I don't believe in them moving forward the rest of the season? No. And to that point, thank you for doing the little trolling you're doing, Amizi, as you usually do for me. Can we talk about this situation as well before we end the stream? I know we're going on 45 minutes and we have the roundtable starting in an hour 15 minutes, so you all can get the perspectives of Hayden and Hector and the full panel on this team. But the situation, right, of Jose Buto and him being used in that first game. A lot of people have been talking about it, and I want to get your thoughts and opinions on that, Rob, about using Jose Buto in what was I wouldn't say a laugher of a game because it felt like the Mets were trying to claw their way back, but they just couldn't get it done. And Jose Butto also struggled in that game, coming into an uncharacteristic situation for himself because usually he's coming in with the game being very close or even having the lead and trying to preserve it over multiple innings in the bullpen. But he was pitching from behind. I don't want to give him that excuse in terms of not being comfortable in that situation, but him being used in such a, I don't want to say laugher, but not really a close of a game, did that kind of hinder and hurt the Mets in game 3 today? Because a lot of people, Junior was saying it in the chat, a couple of people on my timeline on X were saying it. And honestly, I kind of agree with them because I didn't really know why we extended Jose Butto in that situation. I understand putting him in for 1 inning, but why extending him was the priority. But I want to get your thoughts and opinions on that because there's a couple of managerial decisions this series that don't sit well with a lot of people. That was one, and obviously the one with Francisco Alvarez pinch hitting for Jeff McNeil today.
Yeah, I can understand people killing pitch hitting for Jeff McNeil today more than the bullpen decision with Butto, and I think there's 2 reasons for it. Number one, he's on a schedule. We all should know this by now. He's on a schedule, right? They're always waiting and putting him on a schedule just in case they're going to put him into the rotation. I know it's only 40 games left, but I still think that might happen. And I think they're keeping him on schedule. They're stretching him out. They're keeping him, making sure that he pitches 2 innings. Like, why pitch him 2 innings? They're keeping him on this plan, on this schedule, regardless of the situation. I've said this for a couple of weeks now, right? You got to, I think it just, I know you're asking a question, Chris, and I think you know my answer. I just think you wanted to bring it out to the audience and stuff like that. Yeah, it's because he's on this plan. He's on a schedule. Regardless of the situation, he's going to go into the ball game. And if the Mets would have came back in game 1, everybody would have said, wow, Jose Butto for the 2 wins. That was a smart move by Mendoza. But because the Mets didn't come back, it looks bad in game 2 and 3. But don't you always try to win that game? Right? So, we always talk about, let's not worry about game 3. Let's worry about today's game or worry about tomorrow's game, worry about today. We always talk about that. But when the situation doesn't work out in our favor, that's when we start to question it, when it was pretty obvious that Butto is on his schedule. He's on his plan. The Mets provided a schedule and a plan for him to keep him stretched out enough just in case they're going to put Jose Butto in the rotation where he can go 5 or 6 innings, possibly 60, 70 pitches. They're keeping that arm stretched out for that particular situation. It's just the schedule. And I know people don't like it, but again, if the Mets would have came back, everybody would have been congratulating or giving credit to Mendoza for putting Butto in that spot as the Mets fight their way back. So I just think, how about this? How about holding on to a 5-run lead? You don't need Jose Butto. You need Jose Butto to hold on to a 5-run lead. I don't care who is the reliever. I don't care. Sorry. Almost every one of our bullpen arms pitched today. Maton, Stanek, Barbarius, like all of them. All of them have. All of them pitched. They didn't get the job done. It's just that simple, right? You had to hold the 5-0 lead. Was Jose Butto was going to hold the 5-0 lead? Say if he would have came in the 6th and the 7th. Would that have mattered? Maybe. But the Mets didn't score anyway. So, it comes back to the fact that they didn't score nothing since the 5th inning. The bullpen, no matter who they used, didn't pitch well. Everybody gave up something except for Diaz. So, Jose Butto was probably only going to pitch 2 innings today. Who knows? It could have been the 5th or the 6th. Quintana only went 4 innings today. What if Butto would have pitched the 5th and the 6th? Would that have helped us not have the Athletics score the rest of the game? Maybe. But we don't know that. But to continue to, and I know people were talking about it, and that's why you asked that question, Chris. Look, he's on a schedule. We all know this. Mendoza, Stearns, they all told you this. Regardless of the situation, Butto is coming in for probably 2 innings to keep that arm stretched out. Like it or not, that is what they're doing. Because I still believe they're going to actually put Butto in the rotation at some point. I disagree with it, but I understand why they continue to do that. Because if everybody's clamoring for Butto to go in a rotation, you can't make him pitch 1 inning every 2-3 games and expect him to come in and pitch 6 innings and 85 pitches. It's not going to happen. That's why they're keeping him stretched out, and that's why he pitched in game 1. Yeah, it might have hurt us in game 3 today, But do we really know that? Because nobody pitched well today. It comes down to Stanek, Maton, all the guys that we're talking about today that didn't pitch well. They didn't do the job.
Yeah, I've been on record for saying that I would definitely be in favor of putting Jose Butto in that rotation, just because guys like Luis Severino have fallen off a little bit. He doesn't look as sharp. He's pitching the most innings he's had since 2018, and I love the season that he's turned around, and especially what he produced last year with the Yankees. But like at the end of the day, this guy hasn't thrown this many innings in what, 5 years, 6 years? So that's bound to happen. And it's unfortunate because it comes at a time that the Mets need him the most. Because let's face it, Quintana, to me, what he did today is who Jose Quintana is. Like, that's what he's going to give you, more or less. I know some people, maybe yourself, Rob, have a lot more confidence in Jose Quintana. I don't. I never have this whole entire season. And I've been on record for saying that. So, like I said, the Mets are lucky to get the David Peterson production that they've been getting out of him so far, because if it wasn't for David Peterson kind of being that anchor right now, and Sean Manaea, outside of maybe the last brutal start that he had, this rotation would be in trouble. So I think once the roster expands and maybe you see a guy like Daniel Nunez come back, like maybe they are really planning on putting him into that rotation. Like, you never know. It could mitigate and it could stretch out the rotation. Luis Severino gets an extra day of rest. Jose Quintana, who I would love to see get like 5 days of extra rest and just skip one of his starts at this point. But like, yeah, it is what it is. And I could see that definitely happening. But also, I'd said it on the pregame too. The Sean Reed-Foley news is kind of like a backbreaker to me. He's gotten shut down. He's not throwing the ball the way that the Mets would like him to in his rehab assignment, so they shut him down for a couple of days. So that means Adam Ottavino is going to still take up a roster spot, and that's what it is. But right now, the Mets starting rotation, right? Remember, Rob, when we did the roundtable a month ago and we were like going into the All-Star break in the second half, etc., what was your biggest concern with the New York Mets? And everybody was saying bullpen this, bullpen that, right? They were still a little bit banged up at the time, right? Before the additions of Maton, Stanek, and Brazaban. And everybody's saying bullpen or like the offense and the consistency. I said the starting rotation. I said the starting rotation because I said the production that this rotation has given the Mets in the first half of the season was way above and beyond what even I expected and what a lot of other fans expected out of these guys when you look at the names that are on the roster come opening day, especially without Kodai Senga. And you know what? It looks like it's finally catching up to them just a little bit. So that's it.
And people forget, you just brought up Quintana. Remember, Quintana didn't pitch last year until August, right? So this is a lot of innings. He hasn't pitched this many innings in 2 years. So that's for him, for Manaea, who went into the bullpen last year with the Giants. A lot of these guys hasn't pitched this many innings in a while. And it is catching up to him. You just hope they get that second, bill of life or second, breath of air at some point. And, that's probably the reason why I think they're going to bring Butto into this rotation and make it a 6-man, giving everybody an extra day. Because I think you're going to have to. And I think that's the only way you're probably going to have to succeed at this point. And, you brought up also David Peterson, which is interesting. Because remember, it was probably about a month ago, probably on the roundtable, when we was like, David Peterson's been good, but I don't expect him to make a postseason start if the Mets make the playoffs. He might be one of those guys that you put in a postseason start. Just saying, in a wild card, who would you rather have? David Peterson or Jose Quintana right now in a start?
David Peterson. I mean, yeah, 100%. Yeah. Like my rotation in the wild card series would be Jose Butto, David Peterson, and Sean Manaea. With the current personnel that we have right now, those would be my three. I'm sorry to say, but like Jose Quintana, I said it before. I'll say it again. I know at one point we were debating whether who our three was going to be in the wild card series if the Mets made it there, and I left Jose Quintana out. And I think people are starting to realize why I did so, because this guy cannot be trusted whatsoever. And honestly, I'm still kind of skeptical about David Peterson as well, because we've seen him kind of like be a dominant version the way he's kind of pitching right now. But we've also seen the opposite end of the spectrum with him. So I'm kind of hoping that he keeps it up, and I'm riding the wave of David Peterson. But like, this is all subject to change. But one thing is for certain, I've been screaming this over the last couple of months. Jose Quintana is not touching my rotation in a wild card series whatsoever.
Yeah, I brought that up because I remember we talked about it, and a lot of us didn't want David Peterson in a possible playoff game in a wild card series or whatever type of series it would be. So it will be interesting. Again, we got to get there first. 40 games to go. We got to get there. At least 2 games. It's looking like the Giants might win that ball game against the Braves, and we could have gained a game on them. Shit. But at least we didn't lose a game, so that's a good thing. So to round out this post game, in about an hour from now, we got the roundtable. All 4 of us, me, Chris, Hector, and Hayden, will all be with you on the roundtable at 7 p.m. Obviously, I start the stream at 6:50, so everybody can we get a bunch of people in the stream early before we start at 7. So make sure you're there. Obviously, we're going to talk about today's game, the A's series, the upcoming series against the Marlins, 11 walks, everybody's opinion in regards about this team right now, and you're going to hear about from all of us, and that's going to be a lot of fun. The last time you heard we had a roundtable, it was right after the deadline. So it's been about 2 weeks. It's about time we get ready for a roundtable and talk about our damn Mets. So, Chris, any final words before we head out?
No, final words. I'm very curious to hear what Hayden and Hector are going to have to say. Please make sure you guys tune in at 7 o'clock. The roundtable feels like I haven't been a part of a roundtable in a while because I've been traveling for so much. And I do have one last trip coming up here next week, starting Thursday. So I do apologize if I'm a little quiet. But at the end of the day, like I said, got to get my vacation in because the month of September for the New York Mets is going to be very busy for all of us involved here in the Mets content community game. So 7 p.m. stream roundtable on all of our channels. It's going to be streamed to my channel as well. I appreciate you all being here. Please hit that thumbs up. If you're on Rob's stream, come subscribe to my channel at CPNY Sports. If you're on my stream and you're not subscribed to Rob, I'm not sure how you wouldn't be. Make sure you go subscribe to his channel as well. That guy is a hard worker, Rob. I commend you for all the streams and all the work that you do in terms of setting up streams and just being here with the busy schedule that you got going on as well. Marcus is asking what the single update is. He's not pitching for the rest of the regular season. I'm pretty sure, like, with the severity of that strain, I believe is a calf strain that he had, he's probably not going to be throwing until probably at the very minimum, like 3 more weeks, right? It just depends because calf strains can be so hit or miss. Pure Adrenaline Sports, is it okay to go smash something now? Yes, honestly, at this point with this kind of game, absolutely it is. I appreciate it. And yeah, like I said, 7 p.m. roundtable and 10 p.m. on the Fat Boy Fadeaway Sports podcast over on the Variety Sports Network on YouTube. Make sure you go check that out. Subscribe. I'll be going live, chopping it up, talking Mets baseball with them at 10 p.m. So hit that thumbs up. I appreciate it. And as always, as frustrated as we are, right? Rob provided you with a little bit more positivity, maybe a little bit more so than I did this stream. I still believe in this team. I still do. And I've said it time and time again, this roster, the guys that we have on paper, right, they should make the playoffs. David Stearns has been saying it this whole season, whether you wanted to believe him back then or not, whether you wanted to believe Rob and I when we were giving our early season or preseason standings predictions and record predictions for this team. We all believed in this team from the start with the guys that we have on paper. Now it's time for these guys to go out there, believe in themselves. If you have to go do it, just call another team meeting. We want to see another run, and we want to ride high into September, talking about maintaining this race, being in this race, and outlasting the Atlanta Braves. Let's go Mets. See you all 7 p.m.
Absolutely. So Mets postgame, another postgame in the books. Mets lose 7-6. 2 out of 3 they lost against the A's. We'll see you at 7 o'clock for the roundtable. All 4 of us will be there talking about our New York Mets. Mets 62-59. Series against the Marlins. The Mets kryptonite. Again, they're facing. Let's see if they can do the job, win a series, hopefully sweep. But let's win a series, get back on the winning ways, and get this damn wild card with 40 games to go. With that said, see you guys in about an hour. Let's go Mets, and we'll see you at 7, guys. Have a good night.
Meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life because the Mets